rum, red rum, red rum.
You've joined the Betamax Video Club, rewinding back to our favourite films of the 1980s. My name's Rich Nelson, and tonight I've rented The Shining. Watching it with me is Camilla Hannibal, who's the social media manager at Beavertown Brewery, and can be found on Twitter at Camilla Hannibal. Hi Camilla, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good. So, The Shining, this was your pick. How was it this time?
It was just as almost creepier than I remember, actually. It's something about that like slow pace, like sort of creeping up on you feel it has. That was actually the best time I ever watched it.
So, how many times do you think you'd seen it beforehand?
Oh my god, it's just so The Shining is a little bit weird for me because actually the first time I was in contact with Shining was probably when I was around 10, but it wasn't the movie and it wasn't the book. It was actually my big sister's best friend who told it to me as one of her own ghost stories. So when I was 13, I watched the movie and I was like, hold on a minute, this seems very familiar. Completely had ripped up that story. But anyway, so I probably watched it on a regular basis from I was 13 to 14. So I must have watched it at least 50, 20 times.
Fantastic. I say this, as we were talking before we came on air, I mean, this is only, I think, the second time I've seen it, and I haven't read the book, but this is the second podcast that I've done already that references a Stephen King book, but apparently he didn't really like the film.
Oh,
He,
so weird.
yeah, I think he thought that some of the portrayals were a little bit weird, but I say this is generally sort of seen as one of the most famous horror films, but in terms of actual horror, it's a lot about a man's sort of descent into madness and everything else. There's so many famous scenes in it that get referenced in other films. I mean, it's not long, the basic story is a man takes a job as a sort of winter maintenance guy at a hotel and moves there with his family. And yet slowly plays out that we hear about how the previous caretaker had killed his family and gone mad with an axe and everything else. So we kind of know what's coming really from the start, don't we?
Yeah, I guess so. But I think what's fascinating is as well is like the main guy, like Jack Nicholson, who's also called Jack in the movie. He's already like really creepy from the get go. Like even before they go to the hotel, you know that something's not right with him because he's like weirdly condescending and like verbally abusive to his wife,
Yeah.
and that just sort of grows throughout the movie. So I guess the suspense also lies in like where does his already existing madness take him in a way.
Yeah, and one of the other things that maybe not quite so famous is his son Danny, who early on we meet him and he's talking to himself and his imaginary friend Tony in the mirror, and
Yeah,
that really creepy thing he does with his finger to represent Tony speaking. He has sort of visions of the future, doesn't he? And
his signs.
that whole thing with the blood from the lifts, which we see a few times throughout the film, but it doesn't get any less sort of scary. Really, you see torrents of blood coming out of the lift shaft.
Yeah, that is. I've seen a lot of women using that on Twitter as when they tell everyone that they're on their period.
Yeah, I say that's one of those things that I think we all know about, and yet I'm sure there are plenty of men who see that and go, "Ooh."
Yes,
Maybe that's why the adverts use blue liquid.
iconic scenes in it, like Johnny and yeah, that one and the twins and
Yeah,
all that. It's just also because one thing is they're very very creepy, but they're also so incredibly beautiful.
yeah.
Like colors and sort of the style of the whole hotel, like that sort of late 70s. It's just breathtaking. And I think those two things combined just make it like, yeah, iconic.
I mean, when you look at the sort of psychedelic effect of the carpets, and it's one of the things that, this is a Kubrick film, so obviously he's very into his visuals and the style of the film. But we see a lot of Danny riding around the hotel once they go there on his little tricycle. To see the carpets almost, like you say, late 70s vibe that really sort of gives off that creepy air. And, we hear from the start about room 237, and this is the room that the murders happened in.
Yeah, don't go in there, Danny.
And it's Dick, who's played by Scatman Crothers, who is the one who he forms a very odd and initially odd bond with at the start when they're showing him around the kitchen, and he knows that his name or his pet name is Doc,
Mm-hmm.
and immediately his mother starts to think, okay, what's happening here? This is all a bit strange.
I'm surprised in that scene. Like he calls, so Dick is the head chef of the hotel. He shows them around the kitchen, and he calls Danny Doc a few times without knowing that that is his nickname. And the mom picks up on it, but I'm surprised that she just leaves it there. I would find it super strange if some stranger called my kid by his nickname without knowing what the nickname was. But
I was creeped out when our childminder called my daughter by her nickname, but then it turns out I call her that all the time, and she's just heard it.
But there are a few like strange reactions throughout the movie. One of them is my favorite scene that we might get to later. Then.
Well, the whole thing, I mean, it's quite early on, isn't it? When they've got to the hotel and they're being shown around, and Danny's gone off playing darts in the games room when he sees the two girls. Just really creepy, isn't it? They're just standing there. It's odd.
Yeah, I mean, I guess actually in the book they're just sisters. This is like one of those genius things. Like it's so, I don't know why, but it's so much creepier that it's twins. Like it just makes it so much creepier for some weird reason.
Normally with twins, there's one evil one and one good one, isn't there?
Yeah, maybe, or like that. Yeah, and it just looks visually like scary.
And the fact they just pop up out of nowhere, it's all very weird. The way that Kubrick moves the film along is he uses pretty much chapters, doesn't he? So we've had the interview at the start when Jack Nicholson, or Jack, has had his job interview, and then the closing day. So then 1 month later, and Jack's made some reference to it before, that he's a writer, and he doesn't really say an awful lot about what he writes. He has his typewriter and he sets up pretty much his writing station in the hallway. And we can see that from the start he's struggling. He's got a bit of writer's block, maybe throwing a tennis ball around.
Yeah.
Again, it kind of shows that while he's seen the isolation that the owners had kind of warned him about, and cabin fever, he's seen that as, oh no, it'll be fine. He's gone there with that arrogance of, no, it'll be fine, I'll enjoy it, I need the time away. And he's already getting bored and struggling and restless. I think it's at this point, you've already touched upon that he does have that creepy side to him. But apparently one of the trivia facts I read was that Jack Nicholson ate nothing but cheese sandwiches for a fortnight before making the film, because he hates cheese sandwiches and he wanted to get in a bad mood.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. He is so grumpy. And I think I didn't know this cheese sandwich thing. That's pretty amazing, actually. But I find it so fascinating because it's sort of, he has this view of himself as this author that just needs his big breakthrough. And when he gets up to the hotel, instead of having that breakthrough, I think he just faces his own demons in the way that he realizes he's actually not an author. And he takes that frustration out on his wife and son. And it sort of goes into this sort of, he's a massive misogynist, really. I mean, it's just like all of a sudden it's all his wife's fault. She's holding him back. She doesn't understand his like big creative process. But actually the truth of it all is that he's not talented. And the story, like when the ghost butler that he runs into sort of pokes him about this, it's so easy for him to trigger him because he already have that in the system. He already has that it's their fault that I'm not the man I should be. It's so easy to make him angry and go into this sort of murderous mode.
Well, because this scene early on where his wife distracts him, she turns up, and to say distract him maybe isn't the right term. It seems perfectly normal, really. She's asking him how he's getting on, and he's really rude to her, isn't he? He's saying like, "Get the fuck out! If I tell you to fuck off," it's almost like you sort of don't see that coming. in a way.
But I think what's really like sort of backs that why she seems a little bit scared of him. It's also that story that comes really early on in the movie about how he has dislocated Danny's shoulder,
Yeah.
what shrunk. So again, it's like even though this is a horror, like ghost horror movie, I think it touches on some really super real life creepy things when it comes to having an alcohol problem and being abusive and using your partner as a punching bag, and then obviously it escalates to like a creepy level, but it's all there in the beginning, and then it's just taken into a really special context.
And his wife seems, especially at this point when he started to turn on her, and she seems very, very submissive and seems to almost like she's used to this kind of behaviour. There's lots of nodding and yes, dear, and being really quite rude to her. But she kind of takes it, and again, that was one of the things that Stephen King didn't like so much about the film was the portrayal of the wife, saying that she was a little bit too initially weak anyway in that part. But
I can see that he's really good at playing scared as well. That in the movie, he actually goes after her with the axe. Like the way she is scared is like how I imagine I would act when I'm scared, like completely. Yeah. It's panic. Yeah, it's just quite mind blowing.
And you do sort of wonder again. They don't look like the happiest of couple, and Jack's got his issues, and we touch on the fact that he's been quite physically abusive to his son. You wonder how they got together in the first place. At one point they must have been in a similar sort of mindset. They must have been young and carefree, and you can't imagine the Jack character being like that.
The only time he shows some sort of appreciation of her or like shows that he knows anything about her is actually in the interview when he mentioned, I'm going to tell my story about this murder because she really loves this kind of stuff, but then he never does.
No.
So you never get the sense that he ever liked her. I get this feeling that they met when they were young, and he was, again, probably an aspiring writer, and she looked up to him, and then it just never happened for him. But she just stuck around. But I have no idea how she ended up. And that's something I thought about as well. Can you mention any movie with Jack Nicholson when he's not an asshole?
No, that's he is strange. He's very good at it.
He's incredible at it. It's that face, I think.
Even in the interview at the beginning, and you said he was creepy, and creepy is kind of the perfect word because he doesn't have that look of innocence about him, and it's hard to imagine, in any of the films you've seen going back as far as Easy Rider or something, where he just gives off this sort of appearance that he's older than his years, and he seems to know too much and likes being in that spot. You can kind of see where he's gone from this madness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's such an amazing actor, but it just I realized today that he is casted for a certain type of roles. Actually, it's just the movies that are very different.
Yeah, and even in that film that he won the Oscar for, was it As Good as It Gets?
Yeah, and he's horrible in that one.
Yeah. And like you say, he's playing a misogynist, horrible man, and the quirk is he's got OCD, but it's all about how his character interacts with others.
Yeah, and also, what's the movie, like The Witches from Eastwick?
Yeah.
The one with Cher and Michelle Pfeiffer.
That's the one, yeah.
When he plays the devil.
It's just not acting, is it?
No. I mean, it's just the perfect role, but he actually is the devil. I love that movie, by the way.
And sort of with hindsight as well, you sort of look and see a lot of the madness acting certainly in the second half of the film, where it's very much like the Joker that he was in Batman.
Yeah, his facial expressions become more and more extreme.
Yeah, and you can see where they got that from. Well, shortly after we've had this first real confrontation between Jack and Wendy, Danny meets the girls again, and they say to him, hello, Danny, come play with us forever and ever and ever. And then there's a very brief flash of their mutilated dead bodies in the hallway. Jesus. Imagine that poor kid.
Yeah, I was thinking that I saw the remake of the other month or whatever when it came out, and something that struck me was like in that you also see some children being killed, and I just realized that that is not something you're very used to in horror movies. But it seems like Stephen King, he does it quite a lot, like
Yeah.
both in the what's it called, the Pet Cemetery.
Yes. Yeah.
Boy dies, and in The Shining as well. He's not like afraid of touching something that I think for a lot of people is like the worst of the worst, like kids dying or being murdered.
And I guess that was kind of something you associate with even like Stand By Me that he wrote, where the whole plot around that was young boys bonding over trying to see a dead body.
I think that's why it's sometimes like successful as well. He like really touches upon the dark corners of our mind, which we all sort of can relate. We all have those sides.
Some more than others.
Luckily so. But yeah.
But it's after this that Danny goes to see his dad, who's this point. We've noticed he started getting up later and later because he's staying up late at night trying to write. And Jack, says to him, takes him in his arms and says virtually the same thing as the girl said. We could stay here forever and ever and ever. And that's when you kind of think, right, this is wrong. There's a link here between these girls and what's going into the dad's head.
Yeah, and it's also, you see Danny's reaction. It looks like he's just paralyzed.
Yeah.
He's staring out in the air and just like says, like, yes, Daddy. And like, it's really like his mom, actually. He does that thing of like completely obey him and trying not to sort of stir up a situation. That's my feeling anyway.
We cut to Jack because he has a bad dream, doesn't he, where he's on he's sat by his desk and just sort of screams and falls off his chair, showing we keep saying the descent into madness and everything else, but and we learn about Danny's bruised neck and where could that have come from, and his ripped shirt, and it's all very. And at this point, we're starting to see more about, is Jack doing stuff that perhaps either he's not consciously thinking about, or is he doing stuff and convincing himself he's not doing it?
Yeah, it's like that completely, that sort of back and forth of not knowing if it's like cabin fever in his head or if it's actually ghosts. And like as a viewer, you don't know yet at this point if it's, because you know that Danny has a special power and that will make him things. But the mom has not seen anything at this point, and neither has Jack, I think. No, not at this point.
No.
So it could be, you don't know if he's just like acting weird because he's isolated, or if it's actually more than that.
Because his wife confronts him about the injuries because, and let's be honest, he's got previous. She knows that he's been violent towards him before, and that's when it's not long afterwards that she starts saying it was an old woman from one of the other rooms who did it. It's virtually trying to excuse what may, or well, we still don't know, but it's this is the stuff where, and like in a lot of the good films, you don't necessarily see everything, and that's perhaps the scariest bit. You don't need to see every bit of violence to know that it's happening.
No, exactly. He just comes there and his shirt is all torn. Then his shirt is all torn and he has bruises on his neck. And looks really, really like he's, he has like his thumb in the mouth and looks like a little baby almost. It's quite like a horrible scene. Like that, as you say, like because you haven't seen what happened, but you know it's really, really bad.
Yeah. So after being accused of this, Jack goes to the bar, the Gold Room, and meets Lloyd, who obviously doesn't exist.
And now moving into, I feel like when it turns more and more into ghost story as well. Like you still don't know if he's just hallucinating, but it's definitely getting there now, like ghost town.
Yeah. Because I mean, Larry and we see when Wendy comes in, he doesn't exist. There's There's nothing behind the bar. There's no drink, and yet in there, he's having a full conversation. He's getting somehow, whether he's drinking or not, we don't know, but he's sort of basically taking his frustrations out with a ghost, or a figment of his imagination. And again, it's just sort of strange that they managed to move the story along and to move his character along by essentially him talking to himself, and it's in the gold room that a lot of these interactions happen a little bit later on as well.
But the thing is, again, it comes from that sort of place in his head that he feels like it's everyone else's fault, and this, that anger, because he also takes a drink, and in the stories, he hasn't actually had a drink in 5 months because he was drunk when he heard Danny. Now this is like him feeling like no one should tell him what to do. He's like, in his weird twisted way, feeling like he's gaining control over the situation, even though it's like the absolute opposite.
It's after this that Dick has obviously left the hotel for the winter and gone off to where he is, and he's starting to get worried about the family that's left, because he's watching telly and they show that there's heat waves in Miami and that there's 10 inches of snow in an hour.
Dick also has that shining power. I think he had dreamt something that Danny also had dreamt. Like he saw something that Danny also had seen. I don't remember what it was. Like
because his eyes go really sort of frozen, don't they? And he looks like he's clearly seen something horrific, even from his hotel room bed or bedroom.
Yeah, he knows like he needs to do something.
Shortly after this, he starts making efforts to contact the local police up there, and we've already established that the phone lines are down because of the weather, so they've had to go by radio. And he actually goes all the way back to the hotel, as we'll see a little bit later on. But after Jack's left the gold room, he goes off up to find this old woman in the room in 237. And this bit is really weird.
This is the weird, like, this is actually one of my favorite scenes. Because the one thing is, the bathroom is bloody stunning. Like, it's like weird shapes, like mint green. Like, I've never seen a bathroom like that in real life. It looks amazing. And then there's like really long-legged, absolutely naked woman comes out of the bath. And this is why I was talking about weird reactions. Because Jack walks in because he's sort of not like completely lost it yet. So I feel like he's actually going there to see what happens. Because he had that nightmare about killing Danny and his wife, Wendy. And now he's like a little bit like still with it. But then he goes up there to see what Danny was talking about. And this woman comes over to him and they start kissing.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. Like it doesn't. He's just like, yeah, whatever. It could be the woman who hurt my child, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to make out with this naked woman who shouldn't be here in the first place. And then when he looks over the mirror, and I remember this scene like making such an impression on me when I was younger. And then he like it. He sees that she's completely rotten on the backside. He sees it in the mirror. Something that Kubrick actually plays like quite a lot with mirrors. And all of a sudden, she's like this old rotty lady that chases him out of the room. But the whole scene is like absurd, like so weird, so strange.
It's crazy because, like you say, it's Jack's initial reaction to this woman who may have harmed his son,
Yeah,
and it shows perhaps his weakness or his underlying creepiness. That, and again, this maybe isn't acting. You hear reputation of Jack Nicholson is that he sees a beautiful woman, especially naked, and his first thought is, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I just wonder if it's something like in that scene it's telling us like how he's getting more and more primitive as well.
Yeah,
like it's more like me and my rules and what I want, and like the tiny bit of empathy he might have had is like completely wiped away at that point. Because at that point he only wants that mysterious woman.
yeah.
Which I think no normal person would even consider.
No. And then when he realizes that he's been kissing the old woman, it's like the scene from Ace Ventura where he's petrified and he starts retching and everything has to back.
Yeah, oh my god.
It's shortly after, and we see Red Ram for the first time, and that's written on the door, isn't it?
Yeah, Red Rum,
Red
yeah.
Ram.
I'm thinking, yeah, that's a strange one, actually.
Jack and Wendy start arguing again because she's talked about taking him away and taking him home to get away from Jack and the hotel, because she's obviously realizing that this is clearly not an environment you want a child in of any kind. And he's gone off again saying, I'm not going to let you fuck this up, basically blaming her for ruining his life.
Yeah, exactly. He's back at that again now, being like really abusive.
Yeah. And whatever these underlying issues are they have in their marriage, it's all coming out in one go.
Yeah, but it feels like now she's getting it. Like
Yeah.
it feels like in this scene, even though she's like very upset and cries, I just get the feeling that she has come to terms with now that he's lost it. Like he's scared of him, but in a different way. Like more now she needs to get away, kind of feel.
Yeah. And again, it shows a lot about what may have gone on before in this abusive relationship, and the fact that while he's hurt Danny, we don't know whether there's been any issues between them, and the fact that he's again flipped out, and we know he's really got some issues now. I say maybe issues is the nicest way to put it.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is where she starts thinking, right, I've got to go get away from him, and he decides, right, I'm going to go back to the bar.
Yeah, why not?
This is where the party's going on.
Yeah,
in the bar
party with all the dressed up people. It looks like it's like a 20s sort of theme.
Yeah. Well, as we find out later on, I think it is.
True, maybe even 1921. Oh.
Yeah, just pretty much, yeah, bang on. And so as Jack's sort of starting to get into it again, we meet Grady the butler, who spills Advocaat on Jack, and they have to go off to the toilet.
Have you ever tried that weird
I haven't tried it. No, I've seen it, and it looks odd.
Yeah, I just thought about that today. I was like, oof, this seems disgusting. Anyway, yeah, he gets it all over Jack.
Of all the things you want spilled on you, that I suppose that looks like a child's medicine or something like that.
Exactly.
But they have to go off to the bathroom to get that cleaned up. And Grady, who quite a well-established actor actually, he really starts reminding Jack about why he's feeling like this, and almost encouraging the feelings he's getting from them.
Yeah.
Because Jack realizes that he is actually the caretaker who was there before, who they told the story about.
Yeah, I mean, this is the bit that still confuses me to this day. Because, so, is he... I don't get that, actually. So I was watching it today, I was like, but... so it's him, but it's not him.
Yeah, I guess it's him, but in Jack's imagination, he's now the butler in the bar.
Yeah.
But he talks about, he says, you murdered your wife and kids, and he said, yes, I corrected them.
Yeah, because but that butler introduced himself as something else, Grady.
Yeah.
As the guy who asked his daughters and wife was another first name, but the same last name.
Yeah.
That is like one of those things that, as far as I understand, never really got clarified. But yeah, anyway, it seems like Jack is all through a bad guy and always has been.
Yeah, and anything he hears is just an endorsement of his behaviour, and so Jack goes off and he unplugs the radio that Wendy was using to communicate with the police, and this is where she finds his novel.
All that typing.
Yeah.
I mean, also, even like for the film set, just imagine some poor intern there because it's like obviously done on a typewriter.
Yeah. And say that no photocopies.
Yeah, because like each page is different as well. Like the same sentence, like all work no play makes Jack a dull boy or whatever it is. But it's all written in different shapes. Someone must have actually got the job to type on that.
It's a weird way to earn money.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good story, I guess, to tell at dinner parties. Yeah. The person who wrote that in the movie. But yeah, but it looks really, like, again, such a creepy scene, but it's such visually pleasing as well. Like, you finds out, and like the big room, and everything about it, and also because you like can't stop thinking like just run now. Why do you need to talk to him at all? Just grab Danny and go.
Well, she's got a baseball bat in her hand, doesn't she?
So was it actually to knock him out? Like, was that maybe already her plan?
Well, I suppose you'd hope that she knew that she'd need some sort of self-defense, I suppose. You know, with his reactions, it's hard to tell. She must have swung that thing at him 50 times, basically chased her up the stairs, didn't he?
Yeah, until like he actually said to her, "I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains out."
Yeah.
And that is like,
And then he falls down the stairs, yeah.
and then she actually, swings at him.
Yeah, because she sort of falls down the stairs after she hits him in the head, and then to show that, you know, she's not really the sort of the submissive doormat anymore, she actually drags him into the storage cupboard and locks him in because she knows
Exactly.
how scary he is. Yeah.
And then he tries to even manipulate her like caring side by saying, "Oh, I think you really, really hurt my head."
Yeah.
So he's like trying to guilt trip her into opening the door, which I find really fascinating. Because that seems to like he just really knows how to control her, and he tries that, but it actually doesn't work this time. She's like, she's over it. He also did like say, "I'm gonna bash your brains out," like earlier, so it could have something to do with that as well, I guess.
Yeah. And again, you sort of wonder how many times has he said that to her in the past.
Yeah, true. It's like quite. I never thought about this until today. Like the whole abusive relationship element of the whole story, actually. How that is like a horror story on its own.
Yeah. It's like something out of EastEnders, but now you're putting in a supernatural element to it as well.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, now when he's locked in this, what you call like food storage.
It's in the larder, I think.
Yeah, this is the first time where you could argue that what happened next is proof that there's actual ghosts because someone opens that and lets them out.
Because this is where he's been talking to Grady again through the door.
Yeah.
You know, and basically again sort of telling him, you need to sort this out, you need to sort of deal with this, and then saying you're weak and you've allowed this to happen, it's your fault. Assume a ghost has let him out of the room. But then Wendy's having a nap, as you do. She must be tired from all this, but at least she's thinking she's safe because Jack has already disabled the snowplow that she was going to use to get away. So she's assumed that she's safe and gone for a sleep. And this is where Danny starts saying red rum over and over again.
Yeah.
Red rum, red rum.
Yeah, really creepy voice. I wonder if he did that himself. I think he did, actually.
God, that's a good party trick.
Yeah.
And then grabs a knife. Again, just
a bit confusing. I don't really. I guess it's just like to make his mom take him seriously. I don't know.
Yeah, but he's written red rum on the door with her lipstick, which she then sees in the mirror. Again, another mirror sort of angle. Yeah, and realizes it says murder.
But who is doing that through him? Because like I should probably realize that by now, watching the movie so many times. But you know, sometimes you watch something several times and you can actually get more questions out of it. But maybe it could be just. To be fair, the whole hotel is built on an Indian burial ground. So what did they expect? There's probably like lots of spirits going around, but I just don't understand which murder that thing is referring to.
Or is he sort of doing a premonition of their own murder? And
yeah, of course. And maybe Dick is dead at that point.
I don't think he's dead yet. I think massive spoiler alert. No.
I've already seen this movie. They should.
Yeah. Everyone should have seen this. This is where Jack turns up with the axe, and probably the most famous part of the film, because they realise he's coming and they have to get out and end up trying to get through the bathroom window.
Oh, yes! In this scene. Like the window and everything.
Danny escapes out the window, but Wendy can't because the window's too small. And she has to stand there with Jack trying to get through with his axe. in the old little pig, little pig.
It's just like, and this is what I mentioned earlier. Like her reaction in this just feels so authentic.
Yeah,
Like it feels like she is just fearing for her life, and she's absolutely terrified, which anyone would
yeah,
be. But you can really feel it. I think
yeah.
when you watch,
And
like she's
yeah,
oh
she's
god,
she's already sort of tied in or stuck in this bathroom, and here comes Jack Nicholson with an axe.
Here's Johnny.
I mean, she gets rid of him by she basically cuts his wrist, doesn't she?
yeah, she cuts his hand and he backs off, and then also of course, yeah, then he hears the what's it like a snow plow
Yeah,
thing that,
yeah.
so he walks off.
This is where the snowplow's turned up, and Dick has come back. Made his way up to the hotel with a snowplow. This is the only time we actually see someone dying in the film. Is when
Ooh,
Jack
yeah.
gets him right in the chest with the axe. Ow.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about
Mm.
that. That's true. And also, like one thing that I was thinking about, like if this movie has aged well or not, is one thing that like it does. It's always like something that horror movies seem to do is always the black person who dies first,
Yeah.
and this is
Yeah.
exactly the case in this movie as well. Yeah.
God, I hadn't thought about that. um, yeah, I was thinking actually there was another film I saw recently where they kind of turned that on the head a little bit, and it was all very sort of strange that it was the other way around, and it was really sort of crazy. But again, he meets a very sort of sticky end, and I guess he didn't see that one coming.
No, it's really brutal as well. It being literally axed in the heart.
Yeah. So as Danny sort of escapes and Jack chases him and they go into the maze, Wendy gets out the bathroom, and this is when again she starts seeing things.
Yeah, so this is the first time she starts seeing things, right? So that is just weird.
Yeah, because she sees the really odd. So it's a man dressed as a dog.
In like, yeah, that dog costume.
Yeah, in the dog costume, probably giving another man oral sex.
Yeah. I don't know what that is about. But that's where like I feel that it was all like Kubrick. I feel like that is sort of I thought about Ice White Shot when I saw those scenes.
Yeah,
Sort of those really like a little bit twisted sort of sex.
and you wonder if there's something else that either he was cut from the film or something that explains that, because
Yeah.
sh- I wonder if it was linked to the party, because then she's seen the other guy.
The one you haven't seen before, right?
Yeah,
Like he has had.
and then she sees the blood sort of coming from the lifts as well. So it's at this point when whatever the energy is, or the ghosts, or whatever it is in the hotel, it's obviously starting to get to her as well in one way or another.
Yeah, it feels like you said, like with the energy. I feel like also Jack is like peak madness now,
Yeah,
and every like evil energy in the house is just triggered and buzzing all over the place. So that's probably the reason why she now also can start like also sees these things.
mm.
Because before that, you only seen Danny like doing weird stuff, like writing the red drum on the wall. But that's the only thing that's sort of yeah, it's definitely the first time, and it's weird. Like, why is she running around in the house? Is she just looking for Danny at that
I
point?
think so. Yeah, because I think she's or trying to get out the house anyway to find him. But Jack's started chasing him, and they've gone into the maze. And because it's snowing so heavily, obviously, and this is very well played. Very clever of Danny. He's realizing that he's leaving quite heavy footprints.
Yeah, and he just backtracks and like covers them.
Yeah.
That's so clever. Like, how old is Danny supposed to be? Like 3 or something?
8, 9, 10, something like
Old?
that.
I was like, know nothing about children. I was like, yeah, 2.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe no, maybe he's like 7 or 8. Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's very, very clever boy.
yeah, very clever. I mean, also imagine all the stuff he's been through at this point. Being chased by his dad with an axe in a maze, and you still have energy, like you still have the ability to think, oh, I should better cover my staff. I mean, apparently Stephen King's got the idea for The Shining actually staying in a haunted hotel like the Stanley Hotel, and he has had a nightmare about his son being chased and screaming, and looking over his shoulder by a big living fire hose.
God.
So, and then Stephen King woke in the middle of the night, and this old hotel that was actually going to shut for winter day after, and he outlined the whole book before morning.
Blimey.
So he's having the whole like thing about the kid, especially like the main thing. Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it? You know, this someone can think of a story like this purely from a bad dream they have in a hotel.
But it was a haunted hotel, to be fair, so
Yeah.
it probably is helped a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean, I stayed in the Travelodge a couple of years ago, and I'm sure I heard some noises in the night, but I certainly didn't write anything about it. I should have sent them an email. But then I suppose there was an ad. Was it Premier Inn, the one with Lenny Henry, and he did something similar, didn't he? Like put an axe through the door, and I think that they had to take that one down because of the complaints.
Oh my god! But it is something with hotels, isn't it? Is that I think it's like the mix of abandoned buildings, like the whole thing, like something that's usually have a lot of life, and then all of a sudden it's empty. It's something that really fascinates us and scares us around that. Like also like abandoned houses and stuff. Like it's a fascination, but then also hotels because it has that sort of stuck in an era kind of vibe to them. Like different eras with different hotels, but it's sort of like a little bit of a time capsule. That I think that's why it makes such a good setting as well for a horror movie.
Yeah, because I mean, this film came out in 1980, but it, as you said earlier, the decor and everything about it screams 70s, which would be the time it was filmed. But you know, you don't associate this film necessarily with something from the 80s, do you? You associate 80s films maybe with something neon lights or sci-fi or something silly comedy or something like that. But this was really quite sort of terrifying in its way, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just yeah. The whole thing, the whole like again, I said it before, but the whole like that late 70s. It feels like in a lot of horror movies, was made in like that era, made to look like that era. I don't know if it's just something I like making up in my head now, but it feels like that is extra creepy when it's like sort of 70s. You see like in The Conjuring and those kind of movies. It's also like 70s kind of vibe, and it's just I think just the aesthetics are so strong, that the colors are so strong. There's so much you can play around with that makes it like a really good format to tell a creepy story.
Oh, I almost forgot to say, Jack dies. I mean, we could be talking about this or Titanic or something like that, but he basically when Danny escapes from the maze, makes his way back to Mum, Jack, needs to say, gets completely lost, and we cut to him being frozen to death.
Before he dies, when you see him walking around, he sounds like those really drunk people, like in the 4 a.m, just like shouting out noises. He's like completely.
There'd be a maze outside of Weatherspoon somewhere where.
But then they drive off, and then you don't see anything more, do you?
No, it cuts to him frozen the next morning, and then as the final sort of closing shot, we go back into the hotel to a wall with all the photographs, and there is a photograph of a Independence Day party from 1921, which was the party that Jack was at, and there's Jack.
Yeah.
Airbrushed nicely into the photo. Really gives you, again, more questions than answers to the fact that is he the ghost, or
is it more like, will the next guy who comes there, will he be the one in the photograph next? It's like, is it the ghost that picks a body for each sort of season?
Maybe Jack didn't actually look like Jack Nicholson at all, and maybe that was just Jack Nicholson's the ghost, and
exactly.
takes over their bodies like the Sixth Sense or something.
Because it seems like it's just sort of a story repeating itself.
Yeah.
Over again.
I say, I pity the fool who gets that job next.
Oh my God, the worst.
If that hotel isn't shut down, I think we're going to have words. There will have to be a.
I think that was like, yeah, exactly. But I think the hotel is still around in Oregon.
Oh, blimey.
I mean, the things inside is actually shot in the UK.
Yeah, because it was shot on the same. Something I did notice that it was shot at the same studio as Empire Strikes Back. And,
oh, really?
And the snow that they used was the snow that they used in Hoth in Empire Strikes Back.
Wow,
which,
that's a good movie knowledge.
It's amazing what you find on the internet. So it's probably
But
completely wrong.
the hotel is still there, like, in the mountains somewhere. I want to believe
That must be a
anyway.
proper tourist attraction.
I mean, I know the Stanley Hotel that I talked about earlier, the one that Stephen King stayed
Yeah.
at. That was on a podcast I listened to called Lore. It's talking about like these creepy stories and folklore and all kinds of stuff. And they were actually talking about this hotel. So apparently it's been haunted since the like early 1900s.
Mm.
And there's one specific room as well that is apparently more haunted than the others because a maid killed herself in there. So, but that hotel is actually like now having like I think they have like ghost tours and stuff, making money from all this horror as well.
I suppose no one's going to want to pay to stay there as a hotel, but if you go there as a tour, it's
God, I would never stay in a place like that. Even though in theory would seem fun, like actually doing it, no thanks.
Let's say even watching this film kind of makes you think about some of the stuff that's gone on in hotels that we just don't know about.
I think, yeah, again, another thing to add to the list on why hotels are just such brilliant, like a brilliant setting for these things, because it's just like there's so many different people and yeah, what happens, and there's so many different reasons why you would check into a hotel as well. So many stories.
Maybe this is the hotel from Dirty Dancing, because when the end of that, when they're all closing up for the winter.
Oh yeah.
Oh god. Maybe this is the ghost of Patrick Swayze. Ghost 2.
It all links together.
We've solved it. Brilliant.
Yep.
Let's say we've you said you'd seen a longer edit of the film.
I thought I did. We actually, I thought some of the scenes that you mentioned, I thought that was in the longer edit. So I think maybe we only watched the longer edit.
Yeah. Maybe I watched it.
I was showing off then, and then it was a reason for it. Yeah, it was like the one with the dog costume and that, because I couldn't remember that bit for some weird reason.
Yeah,
so maybe
I couldn't remember it from the first time I'd seen it, but then I don't know. Maybe I was looking out for. Well, not that I look for those things in films, but
edit first time around, and then you actually watched the same edit as I watched now, and the dog bit. I don't know. Now it's confusing. Now we're confusing everyone who listens to this.
Yeah.
Like, what?
There'll be literally dozens of people avoiding dogs in hotels from now on.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, some people might look for the dogs. I don't know. Yeah.
Speaking of actually, like, do you remember my favorite scene, like the one in the minty bathroom?
Yeah.
So my second favorite scene is actually also in the bathroom. Like my two favorite scenes are in bathrooms. So when he runs into the butler and he gets the avocado drink on him, and then they go into another bathroom, and that bathroom is so stunning as well, like completely red.
Yeah.
Amazing. Again, I've never seen anything like it, and the whole interaction there is also a turning point in the movie. So those two scenes, both in bathrooms, and then obviously Wendy's hides in the bathroom when he chops the door. So it's like 3 epic, amazing scenes all in bathrooms, which I find kind of fascinating.
Well, I suppose thinking, my other favourite Kubrick film is Full Metal Jacket, and I guess one of the main scenes in that was in a bathroom.
Yeah.
So
it's like a thing. Like, like all the party always ends up in the kitchen. Maybe the horror movie always ends up in the bathroom.
Or maybe Kubrick did anyway. Maybe that was just his place where he goes to think. Dirty boy. Well, say either way, I really feel like I need to read this book now, because I think I've come out of this with a few more questions.
You know what? I haven't read the book. Maybe I should. I only got the story told to me and watched the movie. So maybe the last thing I need to do. Oh, I also watched, speaking of, we mentioned it briefly earlier. So the whole thing with how Stephen King didn't really enjoy the movie. And then he did like this TV mini show in 1997.
Yeah.
Where he was like in it, was he? I remember he was like very involved, and it's horrible. So bad.
Blimey.
I really did not like that at all. It's very like late 90s and really cheap looking, and compared to the movie, it's just not great.
Yeah, Channel 5 on a Friday night jobby.
Yeah, it was just like I did not see the point in that whole thing. But I wonder if it will be good for now when it got redone. I wonder if this will work as a new 2018 version. I'm not sure.
Well, this is the thing. It's, now that we seem to be full of remakes and everything, and you do wonder if Stephen King would go back to this and with someone else make a version of the film that he actually likes.
I mean, for any, like, it feels like this one will make most sense for him. But then again, maybe he's so fed up now that he doesn't want to touch it anymore.
He's
A movie and then a TV show, and then maybe that's just he's done.
He's too busy slagging off Donald Trump on Twitter.
Yeah, which he's doing a great job.
He is.
Of, by the way. Yeah. And yeah, I was just thinking, like, it's like I could imagine The Shining being done again, maybe with better effects. Not that they're much needed, really. But I still can't imagine it being done in another time era. Like, it's still, for me, again, because the hotel is the setting, it would still need to be like that late 70s feel, for me anyway, to feel right. But I don't know.
Well, no, I agree, because I think that part of the aesthetic of the film and the fact that it looks almost as scary is because if you did it now, it would almost look too modern, and it would be, how would you make a modern version? And they didn't have, the internet or something like that.
Definitely can't have the internet, because then it would be too easy for them to get help.
They'd start Googling about the previous residents.
Yeah, and find a way to get out of the maze, and they would be a challenge at what would be the shortest Shining movie in the world.
Yeah.
There's good reason for why some that might actually be one of the reasons. Yeah, as well. Like, horror movies are just more interesting in an era where technology doesn't make it too easy for you.
If that's a reason why we can put a lot of remakes to bed, that I'd be quite happy with that.
Yeah, I heard that they were actually doing a remake of The Craft, which actually made me angry because I think it's perfect like it is. But
just let it go, man. God.
Yeah.
Well, I say we've pretty much covered the film there, and one of my experiences of The Shining is from, I think there's an episode of, is it Friends, where Joey reads the book and swaps it with one of the other characters, and they said it was his favourite book starring Jack Nicholson. So again, that's another reason to go and revisit that. But as I say, Camilla, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. My pleasure. It's been an hour just flew by. And I guess it always helps to talk to someone about a film they actually like. And again, this is a film that I needed to rewatch again for many reasons, and this podcast is a perfect excuse. So thank you for that. Yeah, and remember that The Shining is now officially a Christmas movie, so you can definitely watch it again very soon. Yeah, and I say there was snow in it, so that makes it Christmas. So. As per usual, I'll be playing this out with the song that was number one in the charts at the time of the release, which was Don't Stand So Close to Me by The Police. We'll be playing that out with that. And again, that was based loosely on a film or on a book that was made into a film by Kubrick. Very weird. Camilla, thank you very much again. And yeah, I'll see you soon.